like Creepshow 1. Go ahead.
I gotta say here, because there's a little bit of personal nostalgia and personal love that I have for this that I gotta talk about.
Yeah, let's hear it.
Okay, so I think that Creepshow 2 has the greatest movie poster in history. And it's the original one where the skeleton is sitting in the movie theater pointing up at the screen. I absolutely love this movie poster, and I remember being a young kid, and so this is when I'm under 10 years old, seeing this on the video shelves in my my rental store in Saskatoon, Saskatchewan, and being absolutely terrified by the cover of this VHS tape. And so
It's
love this.
It's got Raul on it. It's got the skeleton for the first one. And he's not even in this movie.
He's
False
not.
advertising, I say.
I'm okay with that. I love it. This is my favorite movie poster of all time.
They don't make them like they used to,
No.
Photoshop has ruined movie posters. I think we can all agree on that. So
Yes. So I wanted to get that in.
No, very good. Sure. So I didn't mean to cut you off with my enthusiasm. But I wanted to say that none of you guys are like, we love Creepshow 1. You're insane. You don't like it. I really love this one. I think this is way better than the first one, and I'm on board with all these stories. So just so you guys know where I'm coming from these conversations, this is rated much, much higher for me this time. So there you go.
This movie's great. I love this movie.
There's no cockroaches in this. So
no, huge. See, if they only hadn't cockroaches in the first one, we could be having the same. We could be on the same page all the way through. But yeah, I mean, we'll just. I mean, there is this wraparound story. I guess we can kind of like we did last time. We'll talk about that one at the end. But talk about Chief Woodenhead, right? George Kennedy, another guy from the Naked Gun movies. He was Leslie Nielsen's boss in the Naked Gun movies, so getting talent from there. So I really liked this one. This might be my favorite of. Well, yeah, definitely, it's my favorite of the three. Okay. And I've thought it was pretty effective. I mean, yeah, the acting of the all the thieves is a little kind of lame, and but I think it was a nice slow build up of got this old couple and they have this store and he's helping out the Native Americans and he treats this statue with respect and oh, okay, I kind of know where this is going, and things kind of unravel. And then I gotta say I think they handled the concept for a low budget 80s horror movie. The execution of bringing a wooden statue to life killing people was done very, very, very well, and I really liked it.
Marcelo?
Yeah, I do. Oh, let me first preface this by saying, yes, I was not joking earlier when I said this is one of my favorite movies of all time. It has something to do, kind of similar to Bichet's story about seeing that image, that poster on the VHS tape. From what I remember, other than Disney movies, my parents owned two R-rated movies on VHS when I was a kid growing up, little kid. They had Black Rain and they had Creepshow 2 for whatever reason. They weren't big film fans. English is their second language. So I don't know how they came about those two, but they owned them. I was terrified by just the VHS cover and the back of Creepshow 2. I looked up the image just now, and the back of the version I had a picture from The Hitchhiker, his final form, on it, on the back of the VHS. That freaked me out so much as a kid. And then I got the courage to see it still as a kid. When nobody was around. It was this forbidden thing. I was super freaked out by it. And then as I grew older, rewatched it. Yeah, this works for me. It still works for me. It's this this it's not as well crafted as Creepshow 1, but it's just more sinister. It's more cut to the chase. It's more evil. I don't know. It just works. So saying all that, yes, I love this movie. This first segment, seeing it today, rewatching it today, I'm yeah, maybe this is a bit problematic, right? A Native American through line, having Chief Woodenhead be the monster, and good old Holt McClaney playing the villain, the robber who is supposed to be Native American, him clearly being in brown face paint. Yeah, problematic, but God, is it horrific though? Does it work in the end? The imagery of it, the lead villain, the lead robber, getting his hair pulled back and being scalped. You don't see it, but you feel it.
Man. And you knew that was going to happen, like, because he kept talking about his hair. I was like, this guy, this is gonna get cut off. I don't know what for. And then, of course, he gets scalped, which is the ultimate, comeuppance for this guy who would just murder these old people in cold blood.
Yeah,
like terrible people.
And rewatching the robbery with George Kennedy just being shot like point blank with a shotgun. That's horrific of its own, because I think out of the first two movies, that robbery scene just goes on for a long time, and it stretches us out, and it's just so real. I think it's the most real horror scene in the first two movies, because there's no monsters. It's just this villain just shooting down in cold blood these two old nice people. But then they get their comeuppance. These robbers get their comeuppance in a big way. So it still works for me. I just love how gory and violent it is.
Yeah, I agree with you. I love this one as a kid. Just the idea of this statue coming to life to protect these people who have taken care of him, for so long. I really like the idea of that. And going into it again, I haven't seen it in a little while, and I mean, I'm a little bit more exposed, like being in social media, I'm a little bit more aware of, when people bring up issues like whitewashing and things like this, and I was a little cautious going into this, and I'm like, okay, well, I guess it makes it a little bit better that his buddies are white, right? So it's not like all the bad guys were, like, supposed to be aboriginals or whatever, but I mean, it's not 100% better. So there is that aspect of it that I'm aware of. I'm not the best person to speak on it, but I know that there are some issues there. But I really do love the idea of Chief Woodenhead coming to redeem the honor of the people who took care of him, because you do love these two old people. You love their story of how they've had this business that they've had for their whole lives, and it's just dwindling because everything has moved on and this town is just dying now. Right, through no fault of anybody's, it's just people who moved on to bigger cities. Yeah,
and that perspective, that 2020 perspective, coming into it, jumping back on that, seeing it through that lens, just like just how problematic it is, like these choices they made. Got to remember, this is a 1987 movie, and it does feel like they're trying to, kind of not be totally whitewashed. Problematic. I mean, the casting of Frank Saucedo, who's a real Native American, playing the I guess he's the father, right, of the villain, or he's in that family. Uncle, he's the uncle. His uncle, playing the uncle who gives those
blue rocks.
Yeah, those blue rocks, that jewelry to the old couple. I think casting him was a clear, smart move, and There was nothing vindictive about it,
right?
About the story. So just
I think science fiction, fantasy, horror, like it's always a shortcut to be like, it's an Indian burial ground, or it's like the X-Files always go like, the Native Americans, they have a vision, right? So I don't think this was. I think this treated as kind of as well as you said, as a 1980s horror movie could. And
Stephen King does it a lot. Like we talked about it when we talked about Pet Sematary, right, with the Indian burial ground, and right, because we covered those movies earlier in our run of episodes here, and that's kind of something that he does, like those mystical, non-white races that his characters encounter. So
Dreamcatcher.
That's right. I guess I have to give credit to George Romero for writing the screenplay and handling it as well as he could for a late 80s horror movie.
I'm actually surprised at the restraint with the violence in this as well, because when he shoots the woman, there's not a lot of blood that happens at that scene, right? The gun goes off and there's probably just some kind of puff of air to indicate that the shot has happened. And then same with George Kennedy. Right, you don't see a lot of blood there.
Well,
and,
I feel like those are supposed to be tragic deaths. They're not supposed to. Oh, whoa, that's so cool, right? So I think I'm glad they draw the line between like this is serious and tragic, and like we're gonna get these bad guys. And it's gonna be super gruesome, right? And I think that's the differentiation between those two.
Yeah, I want to point out, the death of the woman. It may not be gory, but it is bloody in a way I haven't seen. Like much of just how exactly she's killed. She's killed by getting shot in the side.
Yeah,
you don't see the explosion coming out, you just see her shirt seeping with blood slowly, and that is that was a smart move. Like to not use squibs and to just use like the slow gushing of blood from the chest. It works.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, right on. Yeah, this is a great sequence, and the death of the guys, like the chopping of the guy's head, and like it's just done in shadow,
right?
And then you see the blood splatter on the wall.
Yeah,
and,
that was so well done. I mean, like
yeah.
that was like again, you have an inanimate object coming alive. Like, what's this going to be? I don't know, but like it looked very effective. Like the way they made the suit, it looked like the statue. Like, and then the air, and he kills them all differently, right? With the arrow, and then the axe, and then he scalps the last guy, punching through the wall. Does a RoboCop goes through the wall, right? Anyway, I don't know. I thought this was a great little horror story, and and it gives them the howl at the end, and there you go. And they got their I guess they got the Native Americans got their jewels back.
Yeah, and then the uncle, he didn't quite care that his nephew was dead and scalped.
Well, he doesn't know yet, but
how? Well, the scalp is hanging from the statue's hand.
Can you identify somebody by just some hair? No.
How many people are in that town, Zach? How many people are in that town with
not
that
many.
kind of hair?
Not many. Well, then I thought maybe he was going to go in and discover the old couple had died, but I guess they're just still there.
Yeah, they're just
dead.
rotting.
So it's a horror movie, right? It's a horror story. So.
Yes. Excellent, right on. Well, let's move on to The Raft, and I gotta say, the line of the first movie is the most fun you'll ever have being scared, and I think this lives up to it, because the most fun you'll have being scared and sexually assaulting your dead friend's girlfriend on a raft while trauma is going on all around you.
What the hell is that? Talk about problematic. That's problematic, Marcel. I feel like that's problematic. The first one is nothing, has nothing on this, but that's its own kind of conversation.
But hey, talking about bad people getting their comeuppance, he certainly does. Although everybody does
right,
in this segment.
This was classic, like 80s horror movie, just condensed into a short story. But it was
because they're all doing drugs.
Yeah, they're all doing drugs and going out to the I'm thinking of Camp Crystal Lake or something with all these kids, right? With Friday the 13th or something.
Yeah. I like this one a lot. Growing up, this one was definitely my favorite, just because of I found this one
we know why.
terrifying. I like boobs, yes, but I mean, looking back in perspective, the oil slick, and just the tension that's built with it, and the way that he sees it off to the side, and it's eating the ducks.
Yeah, it's terrifying.
And how it slowly builds up. And I remember the first time I saw this, and with him dying at the end and thinking he got away, and it just jumps up on the land. I'm like, brilliant.
Yeah.
What a brilliant finish.
I beat you. I don't know what you are, but I beat you. Whoa! Like, that was, again, short stories. You don't know, right? Because this guy, he's not a hero. I mean, like, clearly, if there was any doubt, him, like, taking advantage of his friend's girlfriend because he's dead, and his girlfriend was dead as well. Sleaze, so you're like, okay, I don't want him to get away. I guess everybody's gonna die, and he did. But did you not think of Star Trek, Brandon, with Armis and the oil slick and it moving around and all that? That's what I thought.
Oh, totally.
Skin of
the
evil,
same type of dark slime. Absolutely, yeah.
They use the term oil slick, so
oil slick, yeah. But what's even better is, like, you get that one sequence, I think it's when the second girl dies, and it's like her skeleton just, like, comes up.
Yeah.
Right? Oh, it's wonderful. So
Data,
wonderful.
something's got me! Anyway.
This to me is a perfect segment. It's like you guys said earlier, it encapsulates 80s horror. Like, yeah, they could be at Camp Crystal Lake, and, but replace Jason with an oil slick that just devours things. That's all you need.
Yeah.
and that them being isolated, them being trapped on that raft, such a great device. And each death is it's chilling. I think this is my favorite. Maybe
when that beefcake guy, his leg goes up.
God, yeah.
Oh man, that is some brilliant special effects, because that leg is like bent. That leg is dislocated.
That snap has always got me. Every time I watch it, I'm like, that snap. And the imagery of the ring being caught between the planks and his hand being pulled down.
That's very artistic, right? Just the ring as he slips down. So well done.
Yeah, for the budget, you have some great people working behind the scenes. Like Savini only did like some work. He